OK, so a new investigation has found that drug dealers are using social media sites like Instagram to sell drugs, even targeting young kids by showing pictures of things like cannabis packaged as sweets. Now, this is just the latest in a long list of worries many parents may have about their kids being on social media. So, do you think this highlights a need to have the drugs talk younger than ever before?
Well, I think it's essential because I would prefer to control the narrative that my children are told about drugs. So we were listening to something and the topic came up within what we were listening to and they said, well, Mummy, what are drugs? So it led me very nicely into a conversation. We're in the car and I just thought, you know, it's better that they know what it is, what can happen, what road, obviously, that can lead you down as well. So we had the conversation. It was an age-appropriate one. I said what can happen, and then they asked me about what addiction was, and I talked to them about that as well. And I think for them, obviously, I've got children, one's age 10 and one's age 8, so my 10-year-old was a lot more engaged. And he found it quite frightening, and he was like, that's really frightening, Mum, and that people can feel controlled by something that's outside of themselves, and also what that can lead to in their lifestyles and in their choices. Because, for example, the story that we were talking about, that person ended up losing their job, losing their home, losing the support of their family, and so it can have catastrophic effects. But for us, our children are now exposed to social media, which is a whole another method of introduction. Whereas before, when we were younger, we were talking about this earlier, you know, we'd play knock down ginger next door and we'd play with our friends and we had such a, when we look back on it now, such a purist, you know, upbringing.
Well,
where
we just didn't see it.
We weren't exposed to it as much as we are now, and so...
I mean, my mum, when I was little, you know, obviously I'd heard about drugs. When I say little, probably 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. And I just remember her one day, I said to her, Mum, someone was talking about drugs. What are drugs? And the only thing she ever said to this day was, oh, yeah, well, if you take them, you'll die. That's all she said. And it scared me for the rest of my life.
Well, it worked.
That I didn't, you know, because every time when I got older, funnily enough, when I was a kid, they were never offered, like they seem to be nowadays. But when I got older in the industry, I mean, they were. And my first reaction when people go, try this, so you'll feel great, I'd go, no, I'll die. I'll die. My mum said I'll die, and I believe everything my mum said. But, you know, nowadays, obviously, they've got social media, so it has to be a bit of a better conversation than...
Well, and also, you're just up against so much now as a parent, aren't you? You've almost got to be a cyber hacker or something yourself to get to the bottom of all of the stuff that's being sort of... your kids are being bombarded with from all manner of directions. And, you know, I agree with you. There is a great deal of parental responsibility involved in keeping an eye on what your kids are doing. But we also can't monitor them, like, 24/7. And I do think it needs to go hand in hand with responsibility from the social media companies. And, you know, only this week we've got a whistleblower from Facebook who's saying about, you know, how these social media sites put growth and profit ahead of their responsibility to children. And the algorithms bombard these kids with stuff that they probably don't even necessarily go looking for in the first place. Now, how do you counteract that as a parent?
Well, I think as a parent, for me, you have to take that responsibility in some ways. You know, we did a cyber online cyber safety workshop with our children, which, you know, if there was a pop-up, they knew what to do, they knew what a cookie was, they knew, you know, to swipe left, to swipe right, and when they were in a safe zone, when they weren't in a safe zone, etc., etc. And I think, for me, that was my way of empowering them and empowering myself, because there was stuff that I didn't even know.
I mean, we were the same. My youngest is the same age as your youngest. Sorry, my eldest is the same age as your youngest, and we had a cyber course. It was through our school, and I think if I didn't do this job, I probably wouldn't use social media. So, you know, I would be one of those parents that wouldn't understand about TikTok and all these other things and these platforms that our kids are on. But I do think personal responsibility is important. But I think you're right. There is an element where you can't control everything, and it is beyond us. And I think with my own children, I've made it that it's an open dialogue. We talk about it. My eldest has seen people who are suffering from addiction on the streets when we go into London together, and she's naturally been curious and asked me. So I would hope now that that is an open conversation, she'll be able to come to me as the years go on and we can discuss it. But
well, we've got a spokesperson for Facebook, which also owns Instagram, said we've We've removed several of the accounts flagged to us by the Daily Mail and are continuing to investigate. We work closely with law enforcement and youth organisations to help us continually improve. We're exploring new ways to support people who search for this content in the UK and hope to have an update soon. I hope they have an update soon too.